Hello, and welcome to Securing Success, where we get to know the professionals that make up the cybersecurity sector. Today, we've got Michael Clarke, the VP of Sales of Hook Security, with us. Michael, glad to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark. Very excited about this opportunity.
Excellent, excellent. And you and I had a chance to connect prior and have a little bit of a discussion. And the way you described Hook was really intriguing. Tell us about the company and specifically the segment of security that Hook is addressing.
Yeah, Mark. Hook Security is a smaller organization. We've grown to 20 employees. We were created in 2018, so definitely still a startup. Um, we, as everyone knows in the security awareness space, there's 130 competitors. So we really have had to differentiate ourselves. We focus on PSYSEC. It's PSYSEC. It's psychological security. So we really focus on the part of the brain called the amygdala. And we're trying to get security awareness not to be a check mark, but to be a fun exercise for employees. And I know it sounds crazy, Mark, but we really want them to talk about security awareness around the water cooler or on Zoom calls and not just be like that boring old tech mark that most companies have their employees take. So that's kind of like what we differentiate ourselves. Yeah, I'm very interested in I can go into more details about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we track funding and acquisitions for cybersecurity vendors, we have noted a lot of investment into the training and security awareness space. I know you mentioned SciSec in particular. Are there any other differentiators from the standpoint of SciSec and how Hook may come and be able to beat out the competition when communicating the value proposition to prospective customers?
Yes. One of the things besides psychological security is, we do see ourselves as the underdog in this industry. We're battling Goliath every day, and there's two in particular that really dive deep into the enterprise space, and eventually we want to get there as well. But there's a couple other differentiating factors. We have our own production studio in Greenville, South Carolina, and we make our own videos. We hire real actors, and just an FYI, half of our budget actually goes into production. So having those real actors and character development and creative storytelling. We want the employees and anyone that takes our security awareness training, like they understand the character and they want to see what Wilderness Jack is going to do next. And it's a whole character development and storytelling to make the training memorable. And that goes back to that part of the brain, the amygdala, thinking like TikTok videos, Saturday Night Live skits, YouTube videos. We make them very quick. We've actually came up with a term called edutainment. I'm sure other people have used it, but it's half education, half entertainment. And we really focus on that when we're doing our videos. The second thing that really separates us is our team. I've expressed there's 15 to 20 of us. We're very scrappy. We have a bunch of underdogs, and very agile and flexible. So that is the second thing that kind of separates us. And the third thing is we have really have a simple platform to use and to get started very easily and integrated. I can't tell you how many times. It's probably happened two or three times today where we had a client reach out and we already have them all ready to go within an hour. So those are probably the three main things that I kind of take a point to, like when we're talking to our prospects or clients, of what has separated us. And honestly, everyone loves working with us. I mean, we're very well known in the industry for only being here for 4 years. We go to a lot of conferences. A lot of people know our Hook t-shirt brand. So that has helped out in just getting the word out there. And that's why I love doing these podcasts to get the word out there as well.
Really interesting. So I want to jump to that, Michael. You mentioned, or at least alluded to the fact that you already have paying customers. So it sounds like you've gained traction. And for people watching, I want to make sure that it's understood. Hook is a seed round company that just announced its funding in May. So I want to understand, Michael, how for a seed round funded company, very scrappy, relatively limited resources and employees, how are you gaining this traction? And if you're comfortable with it, with whom are you gaining it with, right? So who are you targeting from a size and vertical standpoint?
Yeah, and I'll tackle that first. I think one of the things that we realized is having that targeted ICP. A lot of security awareness training companies and cybersecurity in general, they don't have that ICP. Like they don't understand where they're good at. And we've been able to build from 0 to 500 clients, and it's a wide range, but for the most part, our core essentials has been with the education, healthcare, fintech, and we are diving into other things, but we've targeted at ICP somewhere between 200 and 2,000 employees. That's kind of like our sweet spot. Now, honestly, Mark, I'm hoping from this podcast and from maybe in 6 months, we're in more the enterprise level, but we've really grown from those mom and pop kind of, 10 to 20 employees. Now we're into that 100 to 200 employee range, and we want to get from 200 to 2,000. That's kind of like we're very proud of that. I mean, going from 0 to 500 clients and let's just say honestly, with COVID, um, literally in 2 years, we've built that from 0 to 500. And not going to lie, the what's going on in the marketplace in terms of a lot of education and school districts and government, they have to have a security awareness training program. So that has definitely helped us get some excitement going on. We have a significant marketing team, not in terms of employee size, but they supply 5 to 10 quality demos a day to our inbound team. So I will say that having that inbound marketing team where we're getting 20, 30 demos a week has been crucial to our success, and we could talk about a bunch of different companies like G2 and all of our great branding and all of our great awards out there and referrals, but it's really has been a scrappy bunch where we started off with a couple clients, used those as referrals and word of mouth, and then started getting our marketing out there with their SEO, started to go to some conferences. As you mentioned, we don't have a lot of money in these budgets for these things, but we've been able to get it to work and build it to over 500 clients in a short amount of time.
Well, that's a fantastic outcome. And I'm sure in terms of the lead component, that's somewhat of a sales leader's dream. So congratulations to your marketing crew on that.
And
Um,
and Mark, just to be honest, you know my background, 15 years of sales leadership experience. I've never been with a company where we're getting 5 to demos set for us a day for each sales rep. And actually, when I'm interviewing a sales rep, the last person that we brought on, that was his big thing. He actually said, "How, are you going to give me leads?" And I said, it felt good for me to guarantee you will have 2 or 3 great leads in your inbox every day. And I've never been with a company that can provide that, and it's been wonderful.
that speaks volumes, and not just to the execution, but the growth of the training industry in general and how much importance people are putting on it. And so, with that being said, with this new seed round, and you've kind of given us a little bit of why this may have been attractive to you. But was there any other motivators to join this company with this product at this stage?
Well, to take you back a little bit, during COVID, I had as you know, I had some big companies that I've worked for, big corporations, and COVID changed my outlook on things. I wanted to join a startup. I was tired of being like an employee number or social security number. I wanted to go in there, and I wasn't afraid to make the big improvements in the room to be noticed. And if I didn't make those improvements, then I wanted to be held accountable too. I didn't want to fall back into the corporate world where you can hide behind things. And I really wanted everyone to know what we were doing. So that would be one thing. I wanted the startup environment. Number two is um, we have a CEO in Zach Eikenberry that I just trust and love working for him. He opened high schools in South Carolina, which was a big deal. Imagine opening in a high school and then having 60 to 100 employees report to you within a couple years. So his vision sold me as well, like where we can be in 4 or 5 years, and the underdog mentality. I've always been an underdog my entire life. That really resonated with me, and being that company that we're nipping at everyone's tails every day. And what do we need to do to make processes better and go to market strategy and things like that. So those would probably be the main reasons why, besides the people, because there's over 600 people interviewed for this job. A few people flew down to Greenville, South Carolina, and I got to meet everyone during the interview process. And it wasn't an easy interview process. It was longer than most companies I've been with, but they wanted to vet me and I wanted to vet them. I wanted to make sure that this was the next career move was going to be for my career and not just a job.
That's so important. People, well, I shouldn't say they underestimate it because I think more and more people are coming to terms with the importance of leadership. And in the past few years, there's just been such dynamic growth within cybersecurity where some of that's gotten lost. And now with where we're at in the security sector, economically, people are starting to recognize how important strong leadership, strong vision is. And I know a lot of individuals are placing that at the top of their list. So I'm really glad that you brought that up for people to consider as they continue to look to make decisions for their career perspective. Um, as a sales leader, Michael, what would you say, right? We all have our long-term vision. You outlined it to an extent. Hopefully, eventually you can get up to the enterprise level, but you are servicing an underserved market across the board for cybersecurity. So what are the short to midterm missions for you? It doesn't necessarily have to be around customer acquisition, but is it building those processes that you referenced? Are you hiring more people? What kind of people, if you are? In general, what do you want to accomplish in the next year or two?
Yeah, great question, Mark. And I'll give you the good and the bad. My first 6 months, I was a little bit too involved in the tactical side. On my third day here, I jumped into demos. And I also think that's very important as a leader to get your hands dirty, so to speak, and understand the processes. It was the first company I ever was at that, on the third day, we had too many demos for our sales team. And I figured, hey, this is my first step where I can kind of jump in and help the sales team. Um, so that, I did learn a lot there. I was more in the tactical side, I say the first 4 months, doing demos, helping out the processes, trying to understand what differentiates us, things like that. As my role has evolved, I'm trying to get more into strategic initiatives. One of the things I'm working on right now is we have a phenomenal inbound marketing program that I've discussed. I got to work on the outbound strategy, looking at an SDR team. I'm actually considering outsourcing SDRs for the first time in my career. So those are some of the things that I'm kind of looking at as a foundation for the next 6 months, a year. We do have plans to double our size. So I mean, ultimately, I know I'm not, we're not going to concentrate on client acquisition, but that's my goal. We have to get to 3 million by December 31st. That would be doubling our growth. Hiring more people. Our plan is to go from 20 employees to 40. My big focus with my experience at Gallup is employee engagement. One of the things we instituted as a startup is, a town hall, uh, company virtual happy hours. We're doing a employee engagement survey, which I have developed with another person in the company with my background with Gallup. So all that employee engagement has been a key part of this because, as you know, with a startup, we don't have a lot of employee engagement ideas, and that has been a key to not only having our phenomenal retention of our employees, but also bringing in new people. So I think training, enablement, and onboarding is something that I've really brought to the team, and we're really trying to build a best-in-class team and model. I mean, we want 5 years from now to people to look at us and be like, "Wow, they did it the right way." Like, can we copy some of that stuff? And I think we're going to be there in a couple years for that.
I sure hope so. All right. There's a lot of early stage companies in this industry that we play in cybersecurity. And ultimately speaking, one of the foundational challenges that early stage organizations and founders have is finding that playbook for growth that's really going to work. So it'll be really interesting to see how you can execute. You mentioned this a couple times, and I really wanted to jump into this when we initially spoke. you come from a different background than a lot of leaders in this space come from. A lot of the leaders that I interact with, whether it's from a recruitment standpoint or a hiring manager standpoint, they're longtime security practitioners, and you come from a varied and different background. So for people that want to shift into the security space, and there are quite a few of them, tell us how you got here.
Yeah, another great question, Mark, that I'm very proud of saying. With my background, shipping logistics, I did workforce development with Gallup, as I mentioned. Gallup really kind of changed my life. I've taken every assessment in the world, and they have a strength finder assessment, and I became a strengths coach. And one of the things that I kind of looked at and what I wanted in an organization is, are they going to play to my strengths, or are they always going to talk about what I suck at and where my development area is? And I think that's very important for a leader to realize, like, what you're good at and what you're not good at, and try to focus on in a job or a career where you're going to be put those strengths in. So yeah, I mean that had a lot to play with it. I think networking is a key part of this. I'm very proud of my networking with on LinkedIn and other areas. Your reputation, it comes into play. Now, I did go out and target the cybersecurity space. Like, that's where I wanted to go. I did work for an organization that was SOC 2 compliance, that they sold that. So that helped me get into a little bit of the security space. Um, but yeah, I mean, that has been a big part of my um, to say my background is networking, getting to know what you want, knowing what you want. And I knew I wanted to do a startup environment, and I knew I wanted cybersecurity. Now, did I know about hook security? No, I didn't know. We were at some different conferences that we touched base at, but I reached out in terms of a recruiter, and I saw the opportunity. At that time, I didn't know it was hook security until we got more into the interviews. And then once I start to learn more about it, that's where I really wanted to be. I'm a very highly competitive person. Actually, competition is number one in my strengths finder. So some people during the interview process would be like, this is very highly competitive. We have 130 competitors. How are you going to deal with that? And I actually love that. Like, that's the first thing I did that first week, was just try to figure out all our competitors and where we can go after that. So having your little niche, I call it an SME, subject matter expert, but whatever you bring to that table, that will help you um, during the interview process, and also get you into those security space, because it's very highly competitive. And actually, everybody I work with is highly competitive. That's one of the things that I really noticed about the people, not only at my company, but when I go to conferences and talk to other companies in this industry, I just see a very competitive environment. So I think that's another thing that helped me out. And hey, uh, I can tell you easily that I've been on at least 500 sales interviews as a leader, sales rep. Showing that grit. Grit is a big key, because just like a sales job, during the interview process, you're going to be rejected 99% of the time. And you can't get down in the dumps about it. You just got to be like, well, it wasn't meant for me, and let's go after the next one. And during that process, I made a point. My wife thought I was a little nuts, but I would reach out to 100 people a day. And if it was an email, phone call, LinkedIn, whatever it was. But during that COVID time, that's basically what I did in terms of what I was searching for. And you got to go after what you want. It's not going to come looking for you.
That's such great advice. And you had it from your perspective. From my perspective as a recruiter, people are going to get turned down. You're not always going to get it, especially in these times where there is a relatively high percentage of cybersecurity professionals that are searching for jobs, and specifically really good sales leaders that are open on the market right now. It's really important to understand that nobody's getting lucky. Nobody's getting every opportunity that they want. And that grit, perseverance, however you want to characterize it, plus effort, that's the way that it's going to happen. And so if anybody's feeling a little down right now because they didn't get the job that they want, hopefully they're hearing this, and that they just wake up tomorrow and they go after it again from their prospecting perspective. Um, one other thing I wanted to ask you about the different exposure that you've had, Michael, is now that you're in security, this is something you said you wanted, you targeted it, you got it. Kudos to you. That's really inspirational, really. But now that you're in it, what do you think, and how are you comparing it to the other industries that you've been a part of?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go back to the competitive environment, but it's much more competitive. These other organizations I belong to, there might be 5 or 6 companies in that same space. I spent 10 years at FedEx. You got the big dogs in UPS and DHL, but that's really it. In this space, I mean, it's an everyday grind. You're seeing a new organization pop up every day, and that's probably the biggest thing that I've kind of had to get used to. Of what the differences are. And then also when I'm hiring a salesperson or a sales team is some people get caught up on the technical knowledge. Like they have to be very technical. And yes, technology skills are very important. We have a significant tech stack that we use every day, but it's not the end all. Like I do feel like you can learn the technology. I'm not the best at technology either. And I didn't have experience or any sales experience or leadership experience in this security space, but it's something that you can learn. And I think having a strong mentor and coach is very key to this space. I've been very fortunate to be using a coach and mentor that kind of helps me because you're going to have down days. I also think sometimes an inadequacy, maybe a negative for me is I don't have a lot of that education or a lot of experience in this space, and it's always good to kind of talk to somebody. And I want everyone to know that's listening to this that, um, especially in this cybersecurity, you might think that you need a lot of experience with it, but as long as you prove yourself and they trust you with your skill set, you can learn this as well.
And that's something that maybe hiring managers and founders should consider as well, right? We always hear about the deficit in terms of how many cybersecurity professionals there are versus what the open positions are. And I know it can be pretty tough because you need somebody that can kind of helicopter in and grind from day one. But at the same time, you are literally living proof that you can be successful in this space and make an impact. So that may be something that in general people need to come to terms with. Um, in these situations, Michael, in these conversations, we tend to get very caught up on the professional component. And especially in your role, high pressure, seed funded startup, really specific goals that you need to hit within a particular time frame. How are you balancing what many people might consider a difficult and oftentimes stressful job with making sure that you're enjoying life? I mean, because at the end of the day, most of us, that's what we're trying to do here.
Right. I will say, Mark, that I'm very fortunate to have a skill set of time management. I know not everyone has that, and it's a tough thing to learn. And I just naturally have had time management. I will tell you, honestly, I probably never been late for anything in my life. Maybe 5 times I've been late. That's it.
How about
It comes from my mom when I was playing sports was late for everything, and I would get upset, and I said I'm never going to do that to my kids, or I'm never going to be late. So, the old Tom Coughlin thing, 5 minutes early, you're late. That's kind of like what I do. I think time management is a big key to this. So one thing that I do is I do block off 45 minutes during the day to take the dogs for a walk, refresh around my neighborhood, get the mail, whatever I need to do. I do think that workaholics like myself, I do consider that I might get on the computer at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. But I do take that break during the day, and I think that's very important. A couple other things that I've learned over the last few years is planning out your day so you're not as stressed out. I read something about it's a great company when you're not stressed out for that Monday morning meeting. and on a Sunday night. And I've kind of like reversed that and just like, you know what? I'm going to take a half hour on Sundays to kind of get ready for the week. And I look at my schedule, I plan out my week, what I'm going to do. And I do know, Mark, that not everyone is going to want to do that. And then also I take 15 minutes at the end of each day to kind of like get ready for the next day. It's just something that has worked for me. I'm not going to say it works for everybody, but I do feel like having that outside the work time management and working for a flexible company too. You know, if my kids are sick and I got to take them to the hospital, I've been in some situations at a previous companies where, you know, I dreaded calling my boss to tell him that, or I have to run out to get some groceries or something like that. I work in a very flexible environment now that I don't have to worry about those kind of things. So that's number one. Put yourself in a best flexible work environment, employee engagement, because us workaholics that like continue to work, we feel like when we take 5 minutes off, like we're cheating the company. And it's something like you have to set up in your schedule. And I just started in the last year blocking off an hour around lunchtime. I never used to do that, and that's really helped me out. And the Strength Finder has helped me out too, knowing what my strengths are, knowing what my weaknesses are, and you know, trying to get in with an organization that values employee engagement. All those things kind of balance each out to have a good work-life balance.
That's outstanding advice, really. And for what it's worth, Michael, I too, as of late, maybe a couple years ago, started blocking off time for lunch. It may not have been the same day, same time every day, because our schedules can be fluid and dynamic, but it is important to take the time for yourself, make sure that you do it, and not get overwhelmed when it comes to the time management component. The one thing I need to address, though, I saw the Steelers logo on the
Oh,
back of
yes.
your chair. And so when you mentioned Sundays, you take time, I imagine it's got to be before the game.
It's definitely before the game, or maybe at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock after. But yeah, it's uh it's something that I've started to do on Sundays because I was the type of, you know, I don't know if every company does it this way, but a lot of the companies I've been always had that Monday morning meeting. And my first couple of years I wasn't prepared like I should have been. So yeah, but definitely after the football game.
Awesome. Well, I got to tell you, Michael, this has been a great conversation. I truly believe that aspiring cybersecurity professionals, aspiring sales leaders today, everybody can get something out of this. It sounds like Hook is doing some really interesting things. It's going to be a competitor in this particular segment of the marketplace. I, for one, am looking forward to tracking both your progress and seeing Hook emerge successfully. So thanks for being with us, and stay tuned for the next Securing Success podcast.
Thanks, Mark.